I'll call to order the the March 24th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Will please rise for the invocation and pledge to the flag. Dear Lord, we ask you to be with us today as we take care of the business for the city of Leesburg. Make the decisions we make today that will be pleasing in your sight. Pray this in thy most holy name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, Commissioners, everybody made it here on a rainy day. We also have our legal counsel here for the first time, Grant Watson. I'd like to welcome him on board. Grant, nice to have you with us.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, before you, you have the minutes, February 24th. Anybody got any amendments, corrections, or additions to those? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes as presented.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Secretary, please put a W in my name. Ted W. That's the only addition I have on the minutes. My middle initial. You want to hand that down there, please? Dan, why don't you let these two people out here know how we do business?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 24, 2022 City of Leesburg Planning Commission meeting. My name is Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning Director for the City of Leesburg. Staff present today includes Sabrina Mitchell to my left, our Administrative Assistant 2, Diane Pacewitz, Planner, and Candy Harper and Christine Rock, Senior Planners. Today's meeting has an agenda available on the table by the exit door. If you'd like to speak on one of the cases, we do ask you to please sign the speaker's registry and turn it in to Sabrina, sitting to my left. Under the rules of participation, the meeting is conducted under the following process. The chairman will announce the case. Staff will read exhibits, including maps, photos, and text, into the record and present this information on the screens. Staff will then read a recommendation into the record. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak about that request. The chairman will allow time for public comment, and the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal. The chairman will close the case to the public, and the commission will discuss the case. A vote will be taken, and then the commission will move to the next case. Planning Commission is a citizen board that is appointed by the City Commission and are charged with two major responsibilities. First is to make decisions on cases such as variances and conditional uses, and in today's case, appeals. They also make recommendations for issues to be heard by the City Commission. Today, the Planning Commission will make a recommendation on the conditional use case, which will then be forwarded to the City, which will be a final decision. And then the Commission will also make a final decision on the administrative appeal case. Please, and since these are final decisions, we don't have to worry about City Commission dates. And then finally, on behalf of the planning staff and the Leesburg Planning Commission, I'd like to thank you for participating in today's public hearing process. Mr. Chairman, we're ready for you to announce the first case.
Well, I want to cuss in the staff here and anybody that would like to speak at this meeting. Sabrina?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Were you all planning on speaking?
Yes, sir.
Better stand and repeat that, Sabrina.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we'll move right on into the first case. Public hearing case CUP 2256, Harlem Avenue Duplex Conditional Use Permit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under CUP 2256, Harlem Avenue Duplex Conditional Use Permit, by way of background, this is a request for a conditional use permit in an R2 medium-density residential zoning district to allow future construction of a duplex. Property is generally located west of Tuskegee Street and north of Harlem Avenue as seen on the attached maps. This location has a future land use category of low-density residential. Under the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances, the use table found in section 25284 parentheses 3, a duplex is a permitted use in the R2 zoning district. However, the city's comprehensive plan, future land use element section B1B, the low-density residential future land use category, requires duplexes to receive a conditional use permit. I believe that was put into the comp plan around 2004. Candy Harper, Senior Planner, will present the maps and photo exhibits, including the aerial zoning, future land use, surrounding land use, wetlands, flood zone maps, and CRA maps.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The map in front of you is an aerial showing you the placement of the property in the city. It lies north of Harlem Avenue, south of Mizpah, and east of Tuskegee. And the zoning of the property is R2. The future land use is low-density residential. And it is surrounded by residential, both developed and vacant, multifamily and single-family residential. And it is high and dry, although there are wetlands around it. It does lie within the Carver Heights community redevelopment area. And the pictures show where we posted the property. The picture on the top is facing north, looking into the property, and the picture on the bottom is facing east along Harlem. The picture on the top is facing south, looking across from the property. And then the picture on the bottom is facing west along Harlem. And that's all I have, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Candy. With that, we'll move to the departmental review summary. The project was sent out to all the city departments for their review and comment, plus Lake County Government and School Board. We received no comments or concerns from the city departments. The Lake County School Board did note that this particular project would not be subject to school concurrency as it is a residential development of 4 units or less. So it actually is only 2 units. Under public responses, we did receive 1 recommendation or request for approval and no disapproval responses from the surrounding property owner letters, newspaper advertisements, and sign posting. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and read the recommendation into the record. For CUP 22-56, duplex on Harlem Avenue, Planning and Zoning Division is recommending approval for the following reasons. 1, the request meets the criteria set forth in section 21-141, conditional uses of the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances for the granting of a conditional use permit to allow a duplex. 2, the conditional use for the subject property is consistent with the city's adopted growth management plan, future land use element goal 1, objective 1.6, and 3, subject to the conditions listed below, the proposed conditional use does not appear to be a detrimental impact on the surrounding properties. I can go through those, Mr. Chairman, but if those are standard conditions stating that they have to meet City of Leesburg code requirements, that any transfer of lease or ownership has to indicate that there's a conditional use permit on the property. Violation may result in the permit becoming null and void, and it has to be executed within 90 days. This permit would have to be executed within 90 days if the commission approved it. Therefore, the vote to approve the conditional use for the subject property to allow a duplex residential development is based on the compliance with the stated conditions. As you can see from these maps, when compared to the lots in the area, this lot is approximately 130 feet wide. The nearby lots, generally to the west, in specifically, are approximately 65 feet wide. And what we found, thank you, what we found in that is that this appears to be a situation where the lot was combined at some point in the past. In addition to that, there is a mix of single-family and duplex residences in the area. And so this, in fact, creates a situation where the permitted density, by allowing a duplex on this one lot, which is a double lot, would not increase the density of the property in any inappropriate manner and would be consistent with the general area. I don't see, searching here, but I don't see Mr. Luis Lopez, the applicant. We did let him know that today would be the day for him to show up. But in any case, staff is recommending approval on this conditional use permit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dan. Does the commission have any questions of Dan? Hearing no questions, hearing no discussion amongst the commission, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, case number CUP 2256, I move to approve as presented with the one change in item 1 from multi-family residential complex to duplex.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
With the amendments. All opposed? Same sign. Motion carries.
Dan, I assume you wanted that, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Since you spoke it that way, I figured you.
Did you catch the amendments?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, sir. And I caught it just as I was reading it. So thank you, Mr. Senate.
Well, we didn't want a high rise going in there.
You are correct.
Be a thin one.
All right. The next item, new business, public hearing case, a variance 2248, appeal of administrative determination variance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For variance 2248, appeal of administrative determination for medical marijuana dispensary. Under the background, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, this is an appeal of an administrative decision regarding the staff's interpretation of the proposed use and distance from a school at 914 North 14th Street, and the proposed use is for a medical marijuana dispensary. Simply put, an appeal of this nature is an option allowed under the City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances that requests the Planning Commission, who is at this point acting as the Board of Appeals under the code, to review and decide whether a decision is correct. So with your permission at this time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request to read the recommendation, which contains some background information and findings, and then of course the applicant would like to present their information. And just to sum it up, the statutes require a 500-foot buffer for a medical marijuana dispensary from the actual dispensary, well, from this property to a school. And with that, under the background, a medical marijuana dispensing facility is defined under Section 5-16 City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances as an entity which is engaged in the retail sale of medical marijuana and related supplies pursuant to a constitutional amendment or other provision of state law. Planning and zoning staff frequently receive requests for zoning confirmation letters for various uses, including those for medical marijuana as seen in the attached zoning verification letter list, which is shown in Exhibit F. In August 2021, Planning and Zoning staff received a request for zoning confirmation letter regarding 914 North 14th Street for use as a medical marijuana dispensary. The address is located at the northeast corner of 14th Street and Citizens Boulevard as seen on the attached maps, which we will show in just a moment. The previous uses of this property were a vitamin or natural food store and a fast food restaurant with a drive-through. I think it was an old Long John Silver's or something like that.
Yeah.
In its response to the request for a zoning letter, staff did note that the location does lie within a 500-foot radius of the school and therefore would not qualify as a location for an MMD. The measurement method for this distance in the City of Leesburg is a straight line which is drawn from the nearest property line to the nearest property line using the city's geographic information system and database. The requester did ask for a reinterpretation of the letter and did provide an argument indicating that the measurement method used by staff was incorrect. As a result of this request, staff did consult with the city attorney, which at that time was Mr. Fred Morrison, who did concur with the staff's opinion of the distance measurement method as seen in Exhibit D. A response was then provided affirming the original findings. Under requirements within the city of Leesburg, medical marijuana dispensaries are, as we said earlier, governed by Section 516 City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances, as well as various sections of Florida statutes. In addition, the city uses the setbacks provided in Section 5-3, which are consistent with the setbacks provided in Chapter 381.986 Florida statutes. Medical marijuana dispensing facilities are permitted in the same locations and under the same conditions as pharmacies, subject to these setback requirements that have been noted. Thus, both the City of Leesburg and state statute do require a 500-foot distance between an MMD and a public or private school. As noted earlier, the City of Leesburg is consistent in measuring distance for alcohol and marijuana uses from property line to property line. Under findings and recommendation, in the City of Leesburg, medical marijuana dispensaries are permitted, and as we stated earlier, under the same conditions as zoning districts, conditions and zoning districts as pharmacies. The city does use setbacks noted in Chapter 381.986 Florida statutes when reviewing requests for medical marijuana dispensaries, which are the same setbacks reviewed for alcohol uses under Section 516 City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances. Staff did review the request to allow medical marijuana dispensary at 914 North 14th Street location and did provide information to the applicant that the request did not meet the setback requirements for distance from a school. Additionally, staff did consult with the city attorney's office, which did concur with staff's interpretation. Thus, a review of the code requirements of Section 5-3 City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances, Chapter 381.986 Florida statutes, a consistent interpretation of the setback requirements, and consultation with the city attorney's office does form the basis for this recommendation. Therefore, as the request does not meet the requirements of Section 5-3 City of Leesburg Code of Ordinances and Chapter 381.986 Florida statutes, the City of Leesburg has been consistent in its use and measurement of these required setbacks in previous requests for medical marijuana uses, and the city attorney's office did concur in this opinion. Based on these findings, the Planning and Zoning Department recommends denial of the request to allow medical marijuana dispensary at 914 North 14th Street. Do we have some maps that we could go through, please, Candy, to give a visual on this? And then when, Mr. Chairman, at your pleasure, when Candy is finished, Mr. James Willard and Mr. Graydon Willard are here from the Schutz Law Firm of Orlando, who are representing the owner, J.W. Freedom. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The map in front of you is a location map. It shows the property under review at the northeast corner of North 14th Street, also known as US Highway 27, and Citizens Boulevard. The zoning is highway commercial C3. No, it is not. My color's off. It's C2. With a future land use of general commercial. And the surrounding land uses are offices, banks, and other commercial institutions. It lies in Commission District 1, and the community redevelopment area is US 27441. And we took pictures at the front of the building showing the sign posting. The picture on the bottom is looking south on 14th Street. Picture on top is looking across 14th into the plaza. Picture on the bottom is looking north on 14th Street. And as we need to post on both streets, the picture on the top is showing that we posted on Citizens looking into the property, so that's looking north. And the picture on the bottom is looking east along Citizens. The picture on the top is looking across the street on Citizens Boulevard, so that's looking south. And then the picture on the bottom is looking west on Citizens Boulevard, again into the mall across the street. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Candy. You got enough pictures here. Okay. Does the commission have any questions of staff on this, or any discussion, or any opinions, or any questions of the applicant?
I have a question. How far?
Please speak into the microphone if you would. Pull it closer to you.
I can't believe someone can't hear me. Candy, how far within the buffer zone is this, is that parking lot of the Catholic school?
We don't get specific like that. If it's within the 500-foot radius
That's far as you.
that's measured, it doesn't look like it's very much, but the statute does not differentiate. If it falls within the 500-foot buffer, it's inside it.
Have we made any exceptions to any other dispensaries that are in city property?
No, ma'am, we have not.
Candy, what is the distance between the two properties?
Um,
I know it's
Well, the property, the
less
school...
than 500 feet, but I was just curious, is it 499 feet or is it?
No, it's more like 490, 494, somewhere
Oh,
around
really?
in there.
That
Yeah.
close? Okay, 494. Okay.
Tim, do you have a question?
Yeah. Have we always measured it the same way?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I know years ago, we used to do front door to front door, but now you do it just by a,
Yes, sir, it's property line to property line, as we do with the liquor licenses, property line to property line.
okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Would the applicant like to make a statement? Please, if you would, come to the microphone and state your name and where you live and work.
Good
afternoon, Chairman, Commissioner. My name is Oh, we turned it off. Excuse me. Good afternoon. My name is Jim Willard. I'm an attorney down in Orlando at the Schutz Law Firm. I live in Windermere, 228 West 7th Avenue, Windermere, Florida.
Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of the current owner of the property. I think the information is a little outdated. HDR Investments bought the parcel back in December. They're the current owner of the property. My son Graydon is the proud owner and president of that company, so he's got free legal counsel today.
Well, he'll pay.
Believe me, it depends on how you guys vote today. So, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. It's a sort of interesting case. I want to say that Mr. Miller's summary that Candy prepared is spot on. That's a good summary of the facts of how we got here today. But if I didn't have a better story to tell you, we wouldn't have much to argue about today. It is a question of how to measure from point A to point B. And the statute that governs the approval of medical marijuana dispensaries in the state of Florida is pretty specific how to do that. And we are governed by the statute. The state law that allowed marijuana dispensaries preempts local laws and has a specific section that mirrors very closely, but not quite exactly the same, requirement of a 500-foot separation between a dispensary facility and the real property that comprises a public or private school. So you know, the test is, where's point A, where's point B, what's the closest distance? Now, the point A would be the dispensary itself. Where do you start from? Do you start from the wall of the building, or, as one of the commissioners used to say, it used to be a front door to front door measurement? Or do you start from the edge of the real property on which the dispensary is situated? The definition of a medical marijuana dispensary facility is in the Florida Administrative Code that expands upon the state statute. And there's multiple references throughout that code that says the dispensing facility has to be a building. You can't just go out in the middle of somebody's yard or in a field and sell this product. There's requirements about the floor area ratio. It has to be secure where the facilities are located or where the product is located and sold. And so there's no question that the definition of a dispensary facility under the state code means a building. So we would maintain that the measurement of point A is the closest building to the Catholic school on St. Paul's diocese. When measured, now, the next question is, where's point B? And I understand that the city's, common and general test to simply go from property line to property line, but I think in this case, because of the specificity of the state statute and the administrative code, we're going to start from the building wall and then go south. If you go south to the property line of St. Paul's Catholic Church, owned by the Diocese of Orlando, we hired a surveyor, went out there and measured it, and you get 500.6 feet. I wish it was 510 or 530 or something, not quite that close, but it did turn out to be 500.6 feet, in which case the dispensary would be allowed. I actually believe, however, that the location of the school is also has to be interpreted in accordance with precisely what the statute says. And it says you have to be 500 feet between the dispensary facility and the real property that comprises a public or private school. Now, just like a dispensary can sometimes be a standalone building, or it can be in a shopping center. And if it's a shopping center like the one right across the street from here that has a, Home Depot and not a Home Depot, but a Beal's and a Home Goods and a number of big boxes, that's probably a 12 to 15 acre site. A dispensary facility that's in a strip center like that is one store of 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. And you would be measuring from the wall of that building, of that store within that strip center, not from the boundaries of the 15-acre shopping center. And you've got medical marijuana facilities all over the state in large shopping centers like that, and that's why they're measured from the store itself, not from the perimeter. The school here, owned by the church, it's like a lot of Catholic schools, and it's associated with a sanctuary in a church building. In this case, St. Paul's happens to be 19 acres, and it's a somewhat oblong, pyramid-looking piece of property on the map. The school is on the south end of the property. The real property that comprises the school, I would maintain, is the school building itself, the athletic fields, the playgrounds, and the parking area associated with the school. If it were a public school, it would be easy because then you'd have just one piece of property and a public school on it, and all the land would be school facilities. But here you have multiple uses going on the Catholic Church property, including the sanctuary, a large parking lot, and a large wooded area to the north. And again, we had the surveyor go out and measure to the sanctuary. It's 800 and some feet, and it's over 1,100 feet to the actual school, which is on the south end of the property where the school activities occur. And I would maintain that it's a reasonable, if not the most reasonable interpretation of the state statute to say that you measure from the real property that comprises, and that's the word that they use, which is a word of limitation, comprises the school. It doesn't say you measure from the edge of the parent tract on which the school is located. If the diocese owned a 50-acre piece of property, the school could be a mile from the edge of the property. which would not be a logical interpretation to measure that way. If this 19-acre tract that the church currently owns was an elongated tract along 14th Street, 500 feet deep, it could still be 1,500 feet long. So again, depending on the size of the property and the size of the parent tract, the actual school could be a long distance away from a facility, but that would be, I think, not an inaccurate measurement and not really in keeping with the spirit or intent of the statute, which is to keep a 500-foot separation between the actual activity that's conducted on the dispensary facility and a private or public school. Now, in your large packets, I included copies of the survey that we had done that is certified. It was just done 2 months ago. And I also included copies of aerial maps where the surveyor did the distance from the wall of the dispensary itself to both the sanctuary of the Catholic Church and then all the way south to the school itself. Now, and as a practical matter, you guys know that area. You're looking across Citizens Boulevard. There's a 4-story building on the other side of the road. You got to go past that, through that building, all the way down to the property line of the church, then through the parking lot and the wooded area to get to the sanctuary, and then the school is south of that, which is actually 1,125 feet away. Now, in either case, I think we prevail. Even if you go to the property line of the St. Paul's Catholic Church, it breaks that threshold. It's 500.6 feet. And again, as Candy said, when the staff originally measured it, they went from property line to property line, and we were 494 feet. So a little research in the state statute, in the state administrative code, to define the facility as the building itself, and that took us over the 500-foot limit. So it is close. It is a rather detailed technical interpretation of the statute, but I think that's why they use the words they do, and it certainly meets the intent of maintaining that distance between a dispensary facility and a school. So I would ask that you folks consider that and, look at the, factual situation and the reality on the ground there, and the distance between the building and the school itself is significantly more, but I only need to break that 500-foot threshold, and that's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions of the counselor? Any questions of staff? Any discussion amongst ourselves?
Yes.
Please.
I think the intent of the statutes is to keep a dispensary at arm's length, as you might say, from a school and young folks that could, be close. And I think 6 feet difference isn't going to make a bit of difference, in my opinion, whether there's a problem with that or not. Yeah. I don't have a problem with granting a variance with the situation that I see there, and there is a significant distance in addition to the 500 or 494 feet to the school itself. So I feel like it's worthy of a consideration to do that.
Well, my opinion a little bit is that, this isn't far from a pharmacy. You don't go in and buy a joint at this facility, so you're not going to have a walk-in somebody without a doctor's prescription or a doctor's referral to be able to obtain marijuana. It's not like pulling up to a particular street corner and flashing your lights 3 times and making a deal through the window at 11 o'clock at night, I think is just a step above that.
It's got a drive-through.
So, still a drive-through. I was going to ask you that question. There is a drive-through type, very hazardous-looking facility there that used to. Would you still be doing a drive-through in your facility if it was open?
Depends on the ordinance.
Yeah.
Some municipalities don't allow it, some do.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know currently what you guys allow.
Dan, can you address that issue?
As an existing drive-through that's been there for many, many years, and the use is literally retail to retail, or I don't see how we could say no based on my knowledge of the zoning.
Greg, do you know of any, I'm not aware of dispensary facilities that have a drive-through. There are? Pickup window? Okay. All right.
The biggest problem is it takes so long to process it. I don't know if a drive-through window is,
Yeah.
Obviously, so many are located in strip centers and just a small
Yeah.
business,
but even if
I
you
just
just,
talked to my tenant.
yeah, if you go in and just buy one thing real quick and want to leave, it still takes, 15, 20 minutes because you got to go through all the process.
I would be surprised there's much business at the drive-through, but I was going to ask the chairman how he knew to flash his lights 3 times.
Oh, it always worked for me.
Oh,
He grew up in the 60s.
60s, come on.
I was trying to help you out on that.
Well, I thought it was 3 times. If I'm wrong, I stand corrected. Any other comments from the commission?
I know that this has already been commented on by a previous council, but I wanted to know what our current council,
For our current
Attorney.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think generally I kind of fall in line with what Mr. Morrison opined previously. I do think that there's probably more leeway in terms of the measurement on the dispensary site versus the parcel where the school's located. I think considering that the school is part of that single parcel, that measuring to the property line of the school parcel is an appropriate interpretation. I think there may be more flexibility, as I said, on the dispensary site itself, as opposed to measuring from property line. But I think that you would need to consider the improvements that are necessary for that facility to operate, like the parking, sidewalks, and that kind of thing, and not just the building itself. I will say that I think the administrative code and statute could perhaps be worded a little more clearly. I don't think that the FAC definition, for example, really adds a lot more clarity to the situation. That definition as quoted was any area designated to be accessible by the public and where derivative product and marijuana delivery devices will be dispensed at retail. That doesn't say, for example, any enclosed structure or building where the product will be dispensed. And so that's why I think you would consider, or it would be reasonable to consider the improvements like the parking area in that. If there were, say a landscape buffer on the south side of the property, unimproved, not really being utilized by the public, I think that you could look at that as not necessarily needing to be included in the measurement. But in this situation, it looks like the parking goes essentially to the property line. And so that's why I kind of fall in line with what Mr. Morrison said.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may comment.
Carry on.
Mr. Watson, I understand your interpretation. I would point out that in Chapter 381, the word facility with a capital F is defined as the actual physical building from within which the product is sold. And, it requires floor plans and it talks about floor plans of the proposed building. So, which is why I think that the facility is the building itself, and especially in a situation where you have an inline dispensary in a shopping center that may be a huge mega town center with, you know, out parcels and strip centers. You're going to measure from the building itself and not the edge of a parking lot that could be hundreds and hundreds of feet out. So anyway, I think it's a reasonable interpretation to measure from the building.
Go ahead and comment on that.
I think, doesn't it also require information about parking and property lines and that kind of thing as well with the plans for the facility and that section of the administrative code? The, what was it, 64-4.002. At some point, it looked like it was asking for information about parking and lot lines and that as well.
It could be additional information, but the dispensing facility has to be a secure location.
Right.
And once you get outside the building, it's not a secure location anymore. So I really think you gotta go to the wall of the building, whether it's a standalone out parcel or in a power center someplace that could be 10, 15, 30 acres in size.
I'm not an attorney, but, and I'm leaning towards approving it, but I don't think what the state is doing for licensure has anything to do with our rules. You know, you have to do certain things to get the license, but you have to do certain things to have it in Leesburg. So the stuff that they say has nothing to do with what we say, is the way I interpret.
That's generally true.
It's pretty true.
Well, the problem is there's a concept of preemption where the federal government, their law stands, it doesn't matter what the states do. Same thing happens on the state level. The state can preempt local governments in certain areas of the law, and in this particular situation, the reference to the distance from the dispensing facility is in a section of the code that says preemption by state law. So the state code absolutely controls, even though the city code is extremly similar.
Right, but what I'm saying is if the state, if our code says 750, you would have to follow the 750.
No, sir.
You would just have to have it at least 500 feet according to your licensor, but according to ours, it would be 750. I mean, I know this is a mute argument, but
No,
I just wanted it clear.
It's a good point, but
I wanted it clear for everybody because
Yeah, and I'll jump in here. I mean, the state...
the feds can't tell us what we can allow and not allow. I mean, if the feds said we have to allow them in, I mean, we don't have to allow them. Period.
okay. Well, fortunately, that's not the issue before us today.
I know, but the way you sold it, I didn't want them to think that because the state said we had to do it, I didn't want anybody to feel like they had to vote for it because the state said it. I was just trying to clear the air. And like I said, I'm probably going to vote for it.
Okay.
But I'm one of those guys that like everything equal, you know, I want everybody to understand.
Well, then I'm going to shut up if you're going to
Yeah.
vote for it.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
Mr. Chairman, may I,
Yes.
I want to bring to note the Exhibit G, which is the list of medical marijuana letters that have been prepared from 2019 to 2022.
Yeah, I saw
I
that.
think there's about 8 of them. In 914 North 14th Street is the number 2 on that. That one was a denial. We did have a denial on 1409 West Main Street. And this has to do with schools, obviously, is what the code states. Staff's position was simply that because we use it for the alcohol measurement, we wanted to just be consistent. I mean, that was important to us. In this case, we understand the argument that Mr. Willard makes. There is, as an example, a mall, a school, private school within Lake Square Mall. And so this would have an effect on any letters coming or any requests coming in the future out in that direction. And I'm wondering if we should not do something in terms of codification, some type of ordinance amendment or something that would meet the state intent and requirements and allow staff to have clear direction, because the alcohol is clear property line to property line. There's no question or argument. And I understand Mr. Willard's points in regard to definitions of facilities and so forth.
And that's the reason I'm leaning towards it, is because it's not
And in essence,
clear.
6 feet plus or minus doesn't make a big deal. But what staff would like to take away from this is some clear direction as to what we do for the future, because we do have certain tracts of, large tracts of property that, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you did not know that there is a private school in the mall. And therefore, we've had people call, not specifically ask for letters, but call, and we would tell them no based on that private school in the mall. However, going across the mall parking lot, you can run into quite a bit of distance there. So if that's the direction that this commission wishes to head, staff just wants to be sure that we'll bring back to you some form of ordinance that requests an adjustment or something that allows us to have a clear direction, because we wouldn't put Mr. Willard through all this intentionally. It's just a matter of
Yeah, but he's free.
using. Yeah, there's no fee. But
Yeah, he's going to own his son's house before long. My feeling, it should be from front door to front door. I mean, it seems like a more equitable measurement than property line to property line. It could be so ambiguous. You know, it could be, as in this case, in my opinion, that the school is at the far end of the campus, and this is, you got to go through a bank, you got to go through 4-lane highways, you've got a lot of obstacles just to get there.
Well, that's why I got on my phone, because I wanted to look to see if it was a separate parcel,
Yeah.
you know, the church and the school.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's all one. I
It's
saw
owned by the
that.
diocese, all one piece. Yeah.
But it,
Also, can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There is no
Commissioner.
usage there's no usage at the facility, is there?
No.
Unlike alcohol or,
Oh, no, correct.
okay. So you cannot use the product that you bought before you leave?
Do you feel as though you've gotten some guidance, sir?
yes, sir, I think that we could possibly, in the future, in these types of matters, utilize conditional use permit process under the current city codes.
Okay.
And
The current city code does provide for a conditional use permit to change that 500-foot. The state statute also allows a dispensary to be located closer than 500 feet if there's a public hearing and there's a determination made that it promotes the public health and welfare and that kind of thing.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to close this off and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I move to approve the use on case number variance 2248 to allow the dispensary.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
A second.
I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We have one sign, one denial. Motion carries. Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
you bet. Keep the place looking nice, guys. Keep it looking nice. That's a
What I recommend.
visual corner.
Maybe looking at what some of the other cities do as far as that goes, and then maybe us having a discussion after the next meeting and give you some direction or something?
Because, excuse me, sir, because this was a direct appeal, we had to take it as an appeal. But there is a potential for utilizing conditional use permit process. And what we may need to do is simply amend the section 25284, the use chart, to show that in the chart. Because it's written deeper into the code. And we could, so the effect of what this approval is the same thing as a conditional use permit.
So apply for a
And-
conditional use permit versus a variance?
Versus an appeal, or versus, yes, a variance, I guess so.
Okay.
I believe we would, and it calls out a conditional use permit, therefore that would be the route to go in the future. Staff, I just wanted to be sure that we were taking appropriate direction. I think we've received that, and we may not have to make a code change at all, but I'll get with our city attorney.
Yeah, I'd take a
Be
look
sure.
at it, because if the school was in where the church is now, I would have not voted for it. Even that, just that little bit of corner.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's in that, area. But the school is completely over here.
Way south
And that's
of
the
it.
reason I was for it.
And
'cause-
the reason that I'm not voting for it is because I feel like this was ambiguous. This just is haphazard, and this is not replicable. We need a process there, and if we're gonna need a conditional use, let's just make that the, essentially the pathway forward for these types of cases.
And I
Yeah.
understand and agree with that sentiment, is that because, as even our own city attorney mentioned a little while ago, there's ambiguity in the state statute, the way it's written, and that causes it some difficulty for staff, it causes difficulty for this commission and for the applicants. But because it was a direct appeal and the appeals are permitted under the code, this being the first one, and honestly, this is the first, literally the first appeal that we've had that I can remember, and I've been here since 2002.
Wow.
So we needed to establish some benchmark and that, I think that's what happened today. And then in the future, we can move to the conditional use permit process on each of them if there is a similar situation.
Like I said earlier, when I was first on the commission, we used to go, door to door, but we used to go out the door to the sidewalk, however you would walk there. You go to the corner, across the street, down the street. So it's not cut across even,
And-
it's
Not as a crow flies.
not as a crow flies.
And in the past, when I was here in the earlier years, there was that measurement where you literally had to go and take some type of device and roll it out the door, down the sidewalk, across the street. And that code was changed, I forget what year it was, but that was changed to the as the crow fly measurement a few years ago. And so, but I think staff has the direction we need. And I thank you for your comments, Mr. Chris, Mr. Wood, because we can move on from here. And if we have the situation again, we'll know what to do.
Yeah, thank you.
And Commissioner Wood, I appreciate your opinion on that as well.
Yeah, I mean,
And stating your reasons, that's important.
Yeah, it is. A lot of people vote against something and won't say why. I learned that a long time ago. It was one of my first meetings.
Yeah.
And I voted against something, and everybody got pissed off at me because I didn't say why. I just voted against it.
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's good moving forward, and we'll have
You
a
bet.
clear process now.
you bet. Okay, if there's anything else for the good of the order,
One more,
Yes.
may I make an announcement, Mr. Chairman? As you all know, we have Mr. Grant Watson here from the law firm Stone and Gherkin as the new city attorney. I just want to personally welcome him on behalf of our staff. We are delighted, and we've already had some conversations and meetings, and we're super pleased, and just thank you and welcome to the city of Leesburg, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'd just say that, again, we're honored and thrilled to be working with all of you at the city here, and we just look forward to a long, productive relationship with you.
great. Thank you very much. And I understand that next meeting will be upstairs City Hall?
That is correct. Did we need to announce that other case was withdrawn, case number 3, for the record? The third case, which was the Arlington
Oh,
Ridge
yes, we
case.
have to make a motion
I
to,
think technically, yeah, you gotta.
we got to make a motion to
I move to
accept that.
remove the last case.
Let me get
Yeah,
it.
it won't hurt a thing.
Just say all in favor.
Is it withdrawn or postponed?
It was totally withdrawn.
Totally withdrawn. Okay, we need a motion to deal with the variance 2253.
So moved.
We have a motion to accept the withdrawal of that application. Do I have a second? All in favor signify by saying aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Motion carries. Anything else? Except we're going to be upstairs at City Hall next month. Everybody know where that is?
Are you sure? You said that 2 months ago.
I know that, but and there's a good chance that I won't be here, so you all might have to put up with our co-chairman here. I got a sister coming to town that I haven't seen in several years, so we stand adjourned.